Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and this is a review of part 2 of the Picard comics, which is a prequel to the upcoming Picard show. And this one I thought was kind of disappointing. I thought the first part was much better. It established a lot of new information and showed us a lot of new stuff, the new starships, new uniforms, the new situation with the Romulans and those native people, and that moral dilemma and all of that. So it had a lot of new information, but in this one, almost nothing new was added at all. It was mostly kind of filler, it didn't really add anything. And in the end of the first part, Picard was imprisoned by the Romulans, and in this one, the natives that he wanted to save with the Romulans, they now uprose and they rescued him from that prison with some help of some good Romulans who turned out to be Tal Shiar agents, which doesn't really make sense since when are Tal Shiars the good guys? And meanwhile, the bad Romulans lie to Starfleet and take over Picard's ship while Picard is still on the planet. And he's now being helped by those primitive aliens, I guess because they heard that he wants to save them too. That's why they decided to save him. And that's basically it. And so there was very little plot progression, no real new information was added. And that's why it felt kind of weak and disappointing. Hopefully part 3 will be much better. And this comics, because it's kind of a prelude to the new show, I think it shows something about the new show as well. And so I'm becoming a little bit concerned if that's all they got, basically. It's not really juicy enough, it's not interesting enough as the backstory of what happened to Picard. The reason that Picard supposedly left Starfleet after all of this. I'm expecting something epic and interesting, not just some silly adventure. So what, just because Starfleet will refuse to evacuate those native people, that's why Picard will be disappointed by Starfleet, I guess. But he did the same exact stuff in the TV series in TNG. There were a few episodes in TNG in which he himself refused to save the primitive people of various planets that were about to be destroyed because they didn't reach warp technology yet. But the alien natives in this comic, they also didn't, apparently they didn't achieve warp drive. They were conquered by the Romulans and they were still primitives, and so technically the Prime Directive should apply to them, and you are not allowed to save them from this planet, according to the rules from TNG, which Picard himself followed. So now for him to leave Starfleet because of this will be kind of hypocritical, and so that's why I'm kind of worried about that, even though I myself disagreed with the way they showed the Prime Directive in TNG. I do think that was immoral, and so on the one hand, I'm glad they're kind of retconning that, at least the character of Picard, retconning him into a more moral figure who does want to save people. In some ways, I like it, in other ways, it's still a contradiction, so they should have set it up differently. At least, have him talk with those aliens and discover that they actually did have warp drive in the past before they got conquered by the Romulans, then the Prime Directive wouldn't apply, and so that way he is allowed to save them, and then if Starfleet still doesn't want to save them because they care more about the Romulans, because the Romulans are more powerful or richer or something like that, then it will make sense for why Picard is insulted by the Federation and Starfleet. That they don't really value all life equally and all of that like he believes. So hopefully part 3 will be better, because otherwise if it's in this kind of level like this part, I will be very concerned about the actual show, because this is directly tied with the show. And so I'm a little bit concerned after the part 2. Part 1 also concerned me mostly because of all the contradictions with the continuity of the older Countdown comics, the one that came before the 2009 movie. And it was also set in the future, which is supposed to be the same future. Some people seem to misunderstand that. I argued with this point with a few people in the comments in my previous video about this. Some people don't seem to get that the future parts of the JJ movies were supposed to be set in the original Prime timeline, in the future of that timeline, from where Spock came. Spock stayed on Romulus in the TNG series, and the 2009 kind of picked it from there, that Spock wanted to save the Romulans, and then he ended up in the past, and then only then created a new timeline, which is separate from the original one. I guess they might say that this new show is actually set in the new timeline that was created in the JJ movies, but I don't think it makes much sense, because if they had a whole century in which they knew about the supernova, then wouldn't they warn the Romulans much earlier and not in the last second? I mean, I guess we can say that the red matter was never invented in the new timeline because, Vulcan got destroyed, most of their scientists died, so it would make sense for the red matter to never have been developed, and so maybe there is no way to stop that supernova in the new timeline. And Nero was a total idiot when he could have easily done that. Instead, he wasted all the red matter trying to attack the Federation for some reason, when he could have simply prevented the disaster that destroyed his home planet. It's one of the stupid points in the 2009 movie. So anyway, if this is set in the new timeline, then I guess maybe there is no way to stop the supernova, and that's why they're only evacuating the Romulan Empire. And also it would allow them to retcon anything they want from the TNG show. If they want to change things, including the Prime Directive, they can say maybe that the politics of the Federation changed, maybe the Prime Directive is different now than how it was before. We'll wait and see. If they mention that Vulcan was destroyed in the new show, that there are a few Vulcans because Vulcan was destroyed a century ago, then that would mean that this is all set in the new timeline that was created. But that would beg the question, why do we have tie-ins to stuff from TNG? If the events of TNG happen differently, why do we still have Hugh? Why do we have 7 of 9? That seems to indicate that all those little events happened exactly the same way, and it doesn't really make sense if such big changes happened in the past, that all of Vulcan was destroyed and stuff like that. That would dramatically alter history. And so how come they still met the exact same people, the same drones from the Borg and all of that? So that would be extremely fishy, but it would be a way to kind of allow them to do stuff how they want it without having to follow continuity exactly. They can simply say a lot of the same events happened, but they might have happened differently, and some events might not have happened. So I do think it can be used as an excuse for all the continuity mistakes, which I'm sure there will be. But if they say that Vulcan exists and it was never destroyed, then that means this is all in the old timeline. And that will beg the question, then why doesn't it fit that older comic, which explains all the events with the supernova and the scenes we saw in that movie in the future should be identical to what happens here. And so in that movie we saw that the supernova happened suddenly and destroyed Romulus, and then Spock stopped the supernova, and yet here we see Picard evacuating colonies of the Romulan Empire, and so it doesn't seem to match what we know from the 2009 movie, from the future segments which are still kind of canon. Like, even if we dismiss the new timeline, the events that happen in the future as shown in that movie should still be canon. And I thought about making up excuses with mental gymnastics to try to tie it all together somehow, but I don't think it's possible. There are too many contradictions between the two versions of events. And also it remains to be seen what they'll do with Data, because in that old comics we saw that Data basically resurrected in the body of B4 and he became the captain of the Enterprise. And here we don't yet know what happened with Data and who's the captain of the Enterprise. So I guess we'll wait and see. So that's all I had to say about it for today. Let me know what you think in the comments below and we can discuss it. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.